Hello, welcome to Proudly We Served. I'm Ron Chappell, your host today, and we're glad that you're able to tune in and be with us today. Today, our guest is Pete McDaniel, and Pete is the Wayne County Veterans Service Officer. Is that correct, your title?
That is correct.
All right. Well, Pete, welcome to the program. I'm glad you were able to make time to come and be here with us.
Well, thank you for inviting me today.
This is an important program because it does several things. One, it lets the community know what's going on with the veterans. It helps veterans to keep abreast of any new initiatives, programs that are going on. It just gives us a chance to dialogue about all of that, you know. So, Pete, tell me a little bit about Pete. Now, you're Richmond, Wayne County resident?
Yes, I am. I lived in Richmond most of my life.
Okay.
Richmond High School, and then went into the Marine Corps.
Marine Corps.
When I was 17,
right,
yes,
okay.
I did.
Okay.
And after my my time in the Marine Corps, I got back out and came back to the Wayne County area. Worked a couple jobs here and there as far as factory, trying to figure out what I want to do after I got out of service.
Yeah.
And then I eventually decided to join the fire department.
Okay.
Joined the fire department, worked there for 22 years, and recently retired, where I then went to work for Wayne County as the Veteran Service Officer.
Okay, all right. Well, that's good. You have that tie
Yes,
to the community.
I do have a connection to the community.
Yeah. And what that says too to me is that gives you a lot of experience relative to the job that you're doing now, you know, because you can truly understand what's happening in the community, and you understand the plight of the ex-service members or veterans, as we call them.
Yes, it does.
Pete, why did you want the job? What was it about it that made Pete want to be the Veteran Service Officer?
Just being that I had always been in the public safety area, trying to help people. It seemed like a job that was a rewarding job as far as helping some of the Wayne County veterans. Once I got to looking into the position, I found out that it could have a lot of positive effect on the veterans, as long as they have somebody that can help them get into the VA system.
Right.
Because we've all heard that the VA sometimes it's harder for the older veterans that are not computer savvy to navigate through the system to get the claims and to get the benefits that they are entitled to.
Right.
So what my position does, it helps these veterans access some of the benefits they can get.
That brings me to the question then, what exactly do you do? I mean, what is it services that you provide for the veterans?
Well, pretty much in every county within the state of Indiana, we have what we call the Veteran Service Officer. And what his primary function is to assist the veterans in filing for benefits that they are entitled, and to make them aware, basically, of some of the stuff that the VA can offer to help them out in one, their time of need, or two, in basic benefits as far as home loan guarantees, as eligibility for that, children and college tuition, as far as disabled American veterans, as far as them obtaining that paperwork, sending it off to the state to get some of these benefits that they're entitled to.
That's interesting. So if I'm a veteran, regardless of when I got out, maybe 20 years ago, and I haven't made myself getting involved with the services and that, and I hear about you and I come to you, you can still connect me regardless of how long it's been?
Correct.
Is that right?
If you have the title of a veteran, you've been honorably discharged, there's a wide array of benefits that you're entitled to. With being said that, as far as the honorable discharge, if you have general discharge, some of these different types of discharges, depending on the circumstances, can be waived. And you can still be entitled to VA benefits.
Full everything?
Full everything.
Is that right?
As long as it pertains to you, yes.
Right. Can you give me an idea of what might disqualify a person?
Generally, it pretty much comes down to if you have a BCD, which is a bad conduct discharge, which means you did not fulfill your obligation to the to the government,
Right.
You're not entitled to no benefits.
Right.
It's kind of you do your part, and the government VA will do their part.
Okay.
And like I said, there is always the exception to the rule, depending on how you got that bad conduct discharge.
Right. Right. Now, dishonorable would totally disqualify, or is that a possibility?
That's one of those ones you can submit, and depending on the conditions of why you was dishonorably discharged, they generally do not get overturned, but sometimes circumstances as far as, and just throw something out there, maybe a veteran was prescribed medications, some type of medications that altered his mental status. He in return did something that constitutes receiving a bad conduct discharge, and later on down the line they could see where maybe he was given these medications or whatever the conditions, circumstances was that led into
Right.
his bad conduct, and a board can look at it and say, well, maybe this was a contributing factor of why he got that bad conduct discharge, and possibly he could be entitled to.
That's an interesting point, because we're learning more now about PTSD.
Correct.
And so a lot of people could have done something wrong,
Yes.
misbehavior, whatever, and it could have been attributed to PTSD. Is that right?
Correct.
So is there any effort to go back and evaluate these folks with these bad conduct discharge or dishonorable discharges or behavior associated problems? Is there any major effort to go back and evaluate them to see if that's the case, or they have to just kind of be identified in the system as they go through? Or
Generally, what I've come to understand as far as the process, and keep in mind, I'm not in that process.
Right.
I'm post after they've done received it.
Right.
They'll come to me and say, hey, what benefits can I get? And then I'll explain to them the process. Well, this is the first route we got to do is try to get you get this amended or get it changed to where it goes to a general discharge rather than a bad conduct. Like I said, the turnover rate on it is. It's very hard to do, but it's not that it can't be done, and it's not an option. It's not a task that I won't try to do for somebody.
Right.
I will send it off. Generally speaking, now I see within the National Guard units, and I speak with the local veterans that come in that are recently discharged. They do a pretty good job of checking them out before they get to that point.
Right.
They understand we have a lot of combat-related stress issues that in the big picture create the PTSD issues that in return could cause them to have an alcohol problem or drug addiction, or possibly lead into other conditions that they're not acting in the right mind, basically.
Right.
So that's where we're at.
Yeah, man, that's tough when you think about it,
Yeah, it's a slippery slope for everybody. To be quite honest with you.
Yeah. So then, as they're engaging you, you're walking them through the process. Do they have to come in with a specific need, or do they just come in and see Pete, and Pete goes over there?
I get them. Some will walk in with a big question mark and say, "Hey, what can
here I
get?" Yeah, this is it.
Yeah.
And once I establish that they are a veteran,
Right.
and they do have an honorable discharge, or what
Right.
type of discharge they have,
Right.
then I go in to look to see if they're a combat vet.
Okay.
And then because different discharge separations codes and time frames dictate some of the benefits that veterans get. So our newer veterans getting out of the military now. If I have a veteran come into my office, he got out last week, he's entitled to 5 years of medical through the VA. And what that does, that means that the post-traumatic stress disorders, or post-traumatic stress injuries is what a lot call it, they don't necessarily have an effect when the veteran is discharged. As time goes on and they get back into the real world, where they try to go from being wired for a 220 from a kill or be killed atmosphere to a 110 with the rest of us back in the real world. Sometimes that transition is hard. And what that means is that, hey, you got 5 years. If you have issues, if you have some medical conditions, You go to the nearest VA clinic or the VA hospital, and they'll take care of your needs.
Yeah. My wife and I, her dad is a 30-year vet, old first sergeant.
Oh yeah.
And we often talk about similarities in his service and my service. I'm Vietnam era, Well, he came from Korea up through Nam and
Right.
all that, But she was remarking about how the family used to laugh at his reaction to loud noises. Until later they realized that this was a complication associated with his direct combat exposure, and that it's really not something to laugh and joke about, that he needed some help.
Right.
So ultimately they were able to convince him, to seek some help.
Yeah.
So I guess my point there, sometimes veterans display erratic kinds of behaviors that people don't understand, and rather than mock them or poke fun at them, try to help them get some help.
Yeah. Sometimes you people that haven't been there basically don't have a thorough understanding of what all's involved. I guess it's not like you see too much of Hollywood wartime.
Yeah.
This is real time. This is real life.
Yeah.
It's no fun driving down the road every day worrying if you're going to run across an IED or worried about a sniper trying to take you out, getting confusion with civilians and children and the good guy, bad guy. It's a mental stress that few have to endure.
Yeah.
And it's not like a mental stress where everybody's had a bad day and a traumatic experience where it's a one-time shock and then they go for another 3 years. These guys are experience this on a daily basis. And over time, it does have an effect on your well-being. To be quite honest with you.
Absolutely.
And they're realizing that, and they're saying, hey, that certain veterans have certain issues, and they're trying to do a good job of addressing those.
Yeah. Pete, you brought up another good point as you're talking there. People tend to look at the Hollywood version of war, which, although some of the stuff that they show. Yeah, it's kind of like that, but I don't think there's any way that Hollywood could really help people have empathy for what the soldiers are going through.
Correct.
The most recent wars I guess because of my age, I consider Vietnam a recent war. but Vietnam, Afghanistan, the Gulf War, those were different kinds of wars than we saw in Korea and World War II and that, because the people that were engaging looked just like you and I. They were everyday people who, in the evenings, put on their weapons, aside from, now in Vietnam you had the regular North Vietnamese forces that were a uniform force, but the Viet Cong, their aides, were just people from the village, that you had to battle, and the same thing over there in Afghan and all that. You don't know who's who.
It does. It complicates things.
It does.
It's nobody. Everybody that's in that position realize, you have to do what you have to do, and the team safety is priority one.
Absolutely.
But nobody never wants to hurt an innocent person.
Right.
And it does weigh heavily on a lot of the veterans.
Right.
I've heard some of the stories some of them talk about, and they're just not good stories.
Right.
But this is it comes with the uniform, unfortunately.
Well, that's why my feeling is veterans deserve everything and more that America can give them, because when these guys and gals give their life into that service, the impact of it can be so long term.
Correct.
And most have given the best years of their life.
Yes.
The best years of their life in service to the country.
And when we're younger, stuff doesn't affect us. So,
and we don't think so. Yeah.
You can relate to this as far as when you're young. Some of the stuff that happened in your earlier years, your 20s and stuff, that doesn't necessarily impact your day-to-day living.
Yeah.
But as we grow older, and we have more time to reflect on certain things we've done, we've seen, we've encountered in life, your own mortality starts coming into the picture, and people take a different perspective on it. And I will say, I see more Vietnam era veterans right now.
Yeah.
Just simply for the fact that they're in that age bracket.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
and a lot of things as far as some of the injuries they had, some of the the exposure issues to the herbicide
Agent Orange and all that.
is truly
Yeah.
starting to have an effect on their body systems
Yes.
right now,
Yes.
and they're encountering more problems.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that's the majority I see.
And other emotional issues. I won't mention the fellow's name, but I happen to be the chaplain for the Vietnam Veterans Post here. And there was a fellow who was extremely sick and terminally ill. And the last time I went to see him, he was so just anxiety ridden. And I asked him, I said, what is it that you really need to talk about, want to talk about? And all he said was Vietnam. Now, I knew from prior discussions that he was 11 Bravo infantry person, and in that situation, you got involved in things at the direction of those appointed above you, and sometimes you had to do things that otherwise you would not have done, in terms of trying to get rid of the enemy in that. And there were people who were innocent people who got caught up in that. But you didn't have a chance to pick and choose. You had to do what you had to do. And this was this guy's situation. So he had all this guilt on him, and he knew he was dying. And so I did what I thought was the right thing and talked with him about it, helped him understand that he was a soldier doing the duty from, as he was assigned, and, that he shouldn't personally carry that, and of course I talked to him about God's forgiveness,
Right.
And then a couple days later he passed away. But that was really a burden on him. And I'm saying that to say that there are a lot of veterans from all the wars that probably there are things that they're dealing with that they're not talking about.
Correct.
And that affect the way that they live, their life issues. So to have a guy like you who's been there, done that, understands the nature of the service and that, to be here in Wayne County to help our veterans, I think that's a big plus, man.
Well, it does help the. You don't necessarily have to walk in, and this is what I tell the younger veterans, and it goes with the older veterans as well. You don't necessarily have to walk in somebody's shoes to understand what they've been if you just open your mind and listen.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of people have to do. It's just listening is the majority.
Yeah.
A lot of your veterans don't like to discuss the combat things that they think about, but they eventually will want to talk to somebody and just talk to them and listen and just be a good active listener, and that's pretty much what they're looking for. And when they come to me, then we can get them hooked up with some benefits that can get them some counseling or get them some medical care that they may need. And to change the subject, as far as the other benefit, there's a lot of good pension benefits for the elderly veterans now. A veteran over 65
is that right?
is considered disabled through the VA standards.
Just because you're over 65?
You're over 65, you can't
Hello,
get
somebody.
it's hard to get it's hard to get a good job at that age and maintain hard work. It limits your employment ability.
Is that right?
So the VA has special monthly pensions. They have one thing out there that is really great for veterans on limited income is what they call aid and attendance. And I would suggest that everybody, sons, daughters, nieces, nephews, if you have an elderly veteran in your family that is having a hard time paying the bills and keeping up on his medications and the cost of living, to look into that aid and attendance. And what it is, it's just for the elderly veterans. There's certain criteria that you have to meet. If they do go to an assisted living, if they're in a nursing home, what the VA does, they take everything that they spend on these facilities and they take it right off of their income, and they say, hey, we want you to have X amount of dollars to live on monthly. And when you exceed that as far as your outgoing income, they'll in return give you a pension.
So is that in addition to, like, if you're already receiving, like, let's say, if you're retired military, and got, what they do is they take your military retirement, and a percentage of that is tied to VA, and it's non-taxable.
Correct.
Okay. Which I understand that there's some discussion about changing that.
Yes, there is. There's a lot of discussion out there now as far as veterans that are retired. There's actually some laws already in place that if you do retire, and say you have some type of service connection disability, say through an IED or some type of injury, It used to be you couldn't get compensated for that without them taking that right out of your pension.
Right.
Well, now they got something going on where it's you can still get your full military retirement, which you're entitled to because you worked there for 20 years and you earned
24.
it. And if in fact you do lose a limb or something drastic like that, you will receive the compensation through the VA as far as saying, hey, we still realize that yes, you did retire and you have your pension, but you're also entitled to this because you did lost a limb or you have some other issues, some back issues or something.
So if you got a percentage like 40% and it's service connected, does it have to be service connected?
Correct.
Okay. Now that's another question. Now if a veteran gets a percentage of disability assigned to him or her, is it directly related to a combat injury, or could it be something that developed during the course of their service, like an illness or something like that?
It could be both, a disease or injury. If you was in the service on active duty and it was diagnosed or occurred,
Right.
It's now covered by the VA. It's kind of like a deal when you go in. You know what? We've got you. You're covered on any medical or injuries you have.
Yeah.
So if it pops up, it pops up.
Okay.
You'll find that sometime, say if Ron lost his leg, and for years you compensated your good leg, trying to keep your balance and walk, and you eventually prematurely wore out your hips, your knees, and created yourself to have a problem on your remaining limb.
Right.
The VA comes down, they say, you know what, this is a secondary condition caused by you lost your leg.
Okay.
So secondary conditions, a veteran can, say, have a bad hip when he gets out,
Right.
and 15 years later, by compensating with the good hip to make up for the bad hip,
Right.
he's wore out his good one,
Yeah.
and now he's got a double problem.
Yeah.
You know, the VA comes in and says, you know what, this was caused from this injury. So that's a compensatable injury by VA terms.
Well, we doggone.
And it's really a good deal, and if you think about it, people have special needs, and if certain issues create, and they're caused by an issue that you got in service, it's not necessarily not the fault of yours, and it has hindered your employment ability due to this. So,
Right.
rightfully so, the VA says, hey,
Right.
we will take care of this. for
Right.
you.
Right.
So you're entitled to, one, it being treated at the VA clinic, and two, if it's a compensatable condition that they say, you know, this is going to stop you from getting gainful employment.
Right. Well, man, this is awesome, and I'm going to have you back because there's still a lot more stuff that I got on my head that I want to talk to you about.
I thought we was going to talk about me.
But this has been great, Pete. If a veteran's out there or family member, and they want to get connected, how do they get a hold of Pete?
Well, you can get on the Wayne County website. You can find a Wayne County Veteran Service Officer block in there, and just click on it and pull up my phone number. You can come into the Wayne County Annex building. I'm on the lower level, down by the elevators.
Okay.
You can come on down and knock on the door and come on in. Generally, the only time you need an appointment if we're going to do a claim. If you say you come in today and you say, hey, I've got this problem, and it's going to require a little bit of time and a little bit of research on my part, I'll block out a certain amount of time for you and say, hey, this is when I need you to come back, and this will get done. If you have a basic question as far as tax exemptions on your property, your license plates, VA loan eligibility, educational benefits, most of those I can pretty much answer the questions within a 5 or 10 minute span. I can point them in the right directions, give them the paperwork, direct them to the paperwork, and if they need help filling out that paperwork, then I'll either do it real quick or I'll schedule them to come back in and we'll get started on it.
Yeah. And I think an important point too is that spouses of deceased veterans can come to you, is that right?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Good.
And there's benefits out there for the widows.
Oh, is that right?
Widows have quite a few benefits, actually. I was kind of surprised when I got into this to look at the benefits that widows are entitled to.
Is that right?
There's a lot out there for them.
All right. Okay. I got to tell my wife that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want her to hurry anything up, but
Yeah. You don't want to change your game plan. want you around a little bit longer.
Hey, you brother. Okay. Well, Pete, it's been really good, man.
Well, good.
I really appreciate you coming, and again, I'm going to have you back again. So
Okay.
I want to talk about some of the new things that are coming on board. There's a lot of
Okay.
new initiatives, and I know folks have heard about what's happening at VA and all that.
Right. Yeah.
But there's a lot of new initiatives and programs that are coming down the pike that are going to apply to us.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
and folks out there want to know about that. So
The VA is a big, it's your major
man.
medical provider
Yeah.
within the United States. And if you
Wow.
look at the number of hospitals, clinics, doctors, nurses,
Yeah.
they far exceed anybody else. It's just a fact that when they do make mistakes, sometimes the numbers are going to be higher than
I can
the
imagine.
normal.
Yeah.
So always keep that in mind.
All right.
And the VA, another confusion I get, the VA is not an insurance policy.
Right.
They're a medical provider.
Right.
And a lot of people, they get a sour taste in their mouth because they think this should be covered or I should be able to go there. It's kind of like just always keep in mind that they're a provider. They're not necessarily an insurance provider.
Right.
And there is certain safeguards now to prevent what happened in Phoenix, as far as veterans are getting in a timely manner and being able to get to a hospital that's more closer than say the 40-mile limit that the VA's now come down and set. But always bear in mind they're basically a medical provider, not an insurance provider.
You know what? We're going to have you back.
Okay.
Because there's still a lot more stuff that needs to be talked about, a lot more information that needs to get out there. Well, listen, folks, I'm so glad that you're able to tune in today, and we'll plan to be back here again next month here at Proudly We Serve. God bless you. Thanks, Pete, for coming.
Thank you.
All right. And God bless the good old USA. Bye-bye.